The first ever 20% stat city skin is here, and it is Dadius Durgibble. I'm never going to try to pronounce that again. But it is a Zenith skin that gives 20% cav attack. Man, these Zenith skins are getting more and more powerful. So in today's video, we're going to be taking a sneak peek at Al Haitham's 30+ million power push for this skin, how 1960 pretty much has this whole continent on lock for Zenith power. And finally, we're also going to be talking about if it's worth it for you to be pushing the Zenith skin. Let's get into it. Before we get to Al Haitham trading 30+ million power for the Zenith, let's talk about who Al Haitham is first. And I mean, he is probably one of the biggest whales in 60GT. You could see that he has pushed honor, but more impressively, he is top in both kill points. You could see that he's above second place by almost 100 million points here. But more importantly, he is also on top of heal points. I was talking to him. I was wondering how many resources he used. He said he used over 120 billion resources. 120 billion resources this KVK is absolutely insane. That's one zone. And he said, yeah, I was just going in, tanking, didn't really care. So that is the caliber of player that we are watching. And keep that in mind, because some of the things here are pretty questionable and I would not recommend for most players. And one of those things is upgrading T4 to T5 with expansions. Usually, you know, T4 to T5 is a very slow, gradual process, but for players like this, time is money. And I was talking to Al Haitham while he was training, and he's like, yeah, you know, I just want to get all of this upgrading over with so that I could gem the rest of the troops here. So I'm like, all right, man, you have the expansions, you know, you could do whatever you want. But for best practice, if you guys are wondering, you probably want to save your expansions if you don't have too many of expansions. If you're pushing for Zenith, save those expansions for later on in the Zenith, so that if you do get pushed out, you can trade batches and batches of troops to get back into that top 10. Again, Zenith the power, it is all about who is in that top 10, because top 10 gets the skin permanently. Outside of top 10, especially if you push power, is very, very tough, because you only get that skin temporarily. Before, you didn't even get the skin at all. So you do get a 30-day consolation prize, but if you're pushing a ton of power, then you definitely want to try to aim for that top 10 spots. So right now he's upgrading his T4s to T5, which is, you know, very standard. I believe it gives the best ratio speed ups to power in the game, T4 to T5 training. I guess one other thing that we should be talking about is the civilization. Al Haitham changed over to Germany so that he can get that extra civilization bonus. We also have a 15% rune, as well as Duke and a kingdom buff. So he has all of the things to have the maximum amount of training speed. He even has the Osiris League city skin for 3% training speed. So a ton of extra training speed. Usually people don't have the Ark of Osiris skin, so if you have the proper VIP, the 15% rune, Duke, as well as a training buff, you should be around 105% training. He's at 108 because of the extra 3% from the city skin. But yeah, make sure if you are training to have all of the buffs active. Now we are in the part that people like to see. It is the gemming of troops. And you might be wondering, a lot of people wonder when they first see it, why are they not going for the full 2k? Why are they going for a specific amount? They're actually trying to use their gems as wisely as possible, meaning that you kind of want to keep your training under that 1 day threshold. So you could see that we're kind of playing around with numbers. You could see that, oh, it's above 1 day, so the gems are going to be a little bit more expensive. When you gem troops, actually uses your saved resources. What you're gemming is the speed up. So you want to make sure that you find that perfect mark. You could see that 1497 seems to be that perfect number here, and 1.5k gems each click. Al Haitham is going to start gemming these troops to train up for the Zenith skin. And yeah, I mean, not too many people have the capabilities of gemming troops, although I've seen some crazy things in 1960, especially with Ploto and his pre-KVK push. But I guess this goes into the topic of if you should be pushing for a Zenith skin. And the crazy thing is, especially in 960, all of these accounts are super stacked. All of these whales are super stacked. So the real question is, why are you pushing for a Zenith skin? You kind of have to question yourself as to why you want this skin in particular. Do you have the means to push against whales? Top 10 is not only in your kingdom, but it is continent wide. So you really have to be committed to the Zenith skin. And one thing I will say is that if a whale wants a skin, they'll probably be able to get the skin. I've been seeing the speed ups of the people here in 960. I've seen the speed ups of people, of whales in general, and you know, you emptying out your bag is probably just a drop in the ocean for some of these guys. And even if you win the Zenith skin, even if you are successful, if you zero out your account of speed ups and resources and are useless next KVK, was it really all that worth it? What are the stats for? So those are the main things that I would think about before pushing a Zenith skin here. Al Haitham, of course, has the resources, has the means to continue to push and still have an impact in this KVK. In fact, he still has more speed ups and resources than me, probably x4 after this push. Just something to keep in mind for a Zenith push for those that are thinking about it. Make sure that you have the means and the right reason behind pushing a Zenith skin, because all that power in most kingdoms, you're gonna have to drop it and you're gonna have to contribute. If you can't sustain the power, then what's the point of getting that skin in the first place? Al Haitham here, continuing to power up. I believe he wanted to go to a certain amount of gems. One thing of note is I think he only powered up to 34 million power. Only is relative, because that is still a lot of power, but he could power up more if he wants to, but he's just planning on powering up to 34 million and then after that seeing how much power he needs to push after, not blowing everything all at once. Because if you could get the Zenith skin at 34 million power, the difference between 1st and 10th is I think a couple gold heads, a couple legendary materials, but at the end of the day, the main thing that you're looking for is that skin. So if you get at 34 million power versus, you know, 50 million power, it doesn't really mean the end of the world, especially for players like Al Haitham, where I'm sure he has enough gold heads. No one could have enough materials, but gold heads are the main grab for that first place. One cool thing about 60GT is that they actually have all top 10 slots accounted for. So there's only 10 people in 60GT that could push a Zenith at a time, and they make sure that those people have enough speed ups, have enough resources, and these are people that have contributed in past KVKs, or in this current KVK, in this case of Al Haitham. Make sure that all these players are killers or rally leads or garrison leads, to make sure that they get the best stats, because those are the people that really matter. Those are the people that the stats are way more important than just an open field player. And I guess we could also bring that to the everyday player as well. And the everyday kingdom is the people that should be pushing for these skins are people that are rally leads or garrison leads. They should have priority because their stats, the garrison lead and rally lead stats, are the stats that get reflected in that garrison or rally. It doesn't really matter if my reinforcement marches get 20% extra cav attack, because it is, you know, the Al Haithams of the world that are leading the rallies or leading the garrisons that the stats reflect. Going back to Al Haitham and his Zenith push here, you can see that he's pushed about 30 million power now, a lot of it through this gemming process, and this is where he decides to stop. He's like, all right, we have enough power as of now. There's probably going to be another training buff and we can just train it up later. So that is Al Haitham and his push. Again, shout out to Al Haitham for streaming it to me, allowing me to create a video. If you guys want more Rise of Kingdoms content, more 1960 content, be sure to subscribe to the channel, and I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.